Alright guys, welcome back to the monthly cup. We're at round 3 and we have Lou90 going up against Superb Lizard. Streamer versus caster. Who is gonna win? Before we jump into that match, we can take a quick look at the bracket and see how things are shaping up. Alvar continues his wins as he takes 3-0 versus Happy Yo? Is that Happy Yo? I can't... Happy Joe. Sorry. My apologies.
Joe?
Chief Bromden beating K-Holic. K-Holic is a very strong player. Chief Bromden moving forward. Very nice for Chief there. Rizo taken down by Mr. T, as in the tea you drink, not the not B.A. Baracus. Teddy obviously beating Aya in that very, very Russia-based series. And now we have Lou90 going up against Lizard. Now, Lou90 is a very experienced player, fantastic player. Had 2 close 3-2 sets against his opponents. But Lizard has just been destroying everyone.
Yeah, I think Lou would, tie the record for top 4 finishes if he's able to, complete another one in this monthly cup. I think it was Sweetie in like the first 4 monthly cups went 4 in a row of top 4 finishes. I'd obviously have to double check my stats on that, but I think that Lou can either at least tie that record or possibly break it he's already tied the record at 3 in a row. So he'll definitely be looking to continue those strong performances that he's had in the past few months.
Yeah, and Lizard, has a lot of experience playing competitive Faeria. He's participated in monthly cups, played at the top end of the ladder, but also analysed Faeria from a commentator's perspective as well, so has a wide range of views of the game. So Lizard is a strong opponent for Lou to shape up against in this match. But yeah, I think Lou would really want to win this one. Like, I know it can be, everyone wants to win the monthly cup, but I think Lou has kind of suffered what King Dan suffered once upon a time playing Faeria. Is he won the first big Faeria tournament we ever had, which was the Go Faeria Clash, but was never able to win a monthly cup after. And I think Lou would feel a bit sad if he wasn't to win this monthly cup, because it could potentially be the last of its kind.
Yeah, it's funny kind of the way that Lou's story has developed as well, because it was, all right, he's been in so many monthly cups, he definitely wants to win or at least make a deep run, and then he took second. And then the next month, he went all the way to the grand finals again, and then it's, okay, now he definitely wants to win. He was just second last month. You know how that feels. He's got to win this one. Second again. And then it went to another deep run through last month's monthly cup into the semifinals and loses that one. And then you go, he won the 3rd place match, so you finally get to end the day on a win, but just that type of situation where you've been in so many monthly cups, it almost starts to probably play into the mindset of, can I get that far again and actually take advantage of it this time to win a monthly cup?
It's difficult. It's not easy.
Yeah.
We have a very strong caliber of players. These are the best players in the world competing in this monthly tournament. Lou has had so much influence on our scene through his videos, through his deck building, his stream. It seems almost right that Lou should be a monthly cup champion. And maybe in our hearts he already is. But he still needs to get that result probably for himself. It's being able to win a tournament as a player who's very competitive. It means a lot to them, not just the prize money, but, I was actually the best this time. Thanks, I've been working hard to be the best. So yeah,
it definitely is a community favorite, probably whenever you see his name in the monthly cup, to at least make a deep run and possibly win it all.
So let's get into the match then. Let's see how these two line up. Superb Lizard, the man with the knowledge, the man with the experience in many parts of Faeria, casting, competing, ladder climbing, versus Lou, who again, another man of experience, content creation, high-level Faeria play. And yeah, this should be a fantastic game.
Yep, and I just have Lizard actually kind of messaging me in the background here of, are we ready? Are we going? So he had such a quick 2 opening matches. He's just ready to get into this one as well.
Now that can go against you sometimes if you have to wait long for your next match, because you can be really pumped going into the first couple of series. Yeah, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to play. But the longer you wait, the more time you have to relax and settle down a little bit. You might lose a bit of that sharpness. So that could play against you depending on what type of player you are. Some players thrive on the adrenaline of going in match after match and just, hammering through the tournament. But, in card games especially best of fives, it can be very difficult to retain that momentum because there can be breaks between waiting for other matches to start.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it could play into the other side of the coin as well, where you're a player who likes to have that little bit of a break to desync from that series and build yourself up towards the next one and really reset. Did get the word there from Lizard. It is a yellow rush to start with. I asked just because it had been such a quick 2 series for him, so we'll be expecting to see that, and Lou getting the green-yellow sacrifice to start off with.
Now, when I made Deck Doctor last week, I made an anti-rush mono green, which was doing really well because no one was played Sagittarius, and Sagittarius kind of made the deck feel very sad because it's very hard for mono green to get up there. But I was saying in the video that another good counter to yellow rush is generally green-yellow sacrifice because Bone Collectors and Skyax are an absolute pain for them to deal with.
Yeah, especially if you can get that Bone Collector snowballing early, it then becomes very difficult for the yellow rush to keep up with the fact that it can then keep going. And it's very difficult to stop that snowball. And then if you've already invested so much resources into that, the first time that Soul Eater comes down, it's just going to be so much of a threat that you can't catch up at that point. Seeing the Bone Collector come out now for Lou and having that second one now in hand could be a situation where we see that potentially happen here.
I don't mind 2 Bone Collectors sitting next to each other because if we were to see Desert Air Elemental Wind Soldier, one of the Bone Collectors is going to get a massive power-up. So it's kind of like a bit of insurance on one of your Bone Collectors, making sure it benefits from some of the power-ups. I think I know this is going to be a Sagittarius build because Lizard played it against me in Deck Pilot last week, and the desert in the center is usually a sign that it's going to be, a Sagittarius build because they need that land for the archer. Yeah, and the second Bone Collector coming down is actually really nice to play around Flash Salmon as well, something that we saw executed really nicely in that previous series. It could be a situation where you go Desert, Flash Salmon, and then either have it just naturally die at the end of turn or use it as a sacrifice target, but the Bone Collector here will pick up a bunch of value, and we see Lou completely empty his hand, getting that Skyax in a defensive spot to defend these Bone Collectors, and now it's looking a little difficult for Lizard of how you start to maneuver around these creatures. Yeah, the nice thing about Green Yellow Sacrifice against Rush is they swarm the board. They flood it with all these little weenie creatures which are really annoying, and they do stuff when they die, or they power up something when they die, and that's one way to answer them. Answer Yellow Rush, just overwhelm them with a lot of stuff that they can't really maneuver around. And I think that's Green Yellow Sack's way to win the game. Bone Collectors, little Elders that are really annoying, Skyax are going to be very powerful. And we've now seen a return of Shaitan Assassin, which didn't feature in Dompork's list. He was actually going for the Feed the Forest Willow combo instead. Yeah, Shaitan Assassins, we used to see quite a bit when Blue Jump was very popular, and Green Yellow Sack would kind of make an appearance here or there. Shaitan Assassin very good at taking out the Colossus, possibly even good in this type of a deck in the Mirror matchup at killing the Soul Eaters. In this type of situation, it just gives you another sacrifice target. Maybe you're able to snowball a little bit from the Bone Collectors there, but I don't think it accomplishes quite as much in this type of a matchup. Although it does kill the demons, maybe the Lord of the Waste very well, but it just dies so easily to things like the Demon Wrangler. It must be very enticing here to kill one of the Bone Collectors with the Shaitan Demon. But actually, Lou has a fantastic follow-up in sacking the Village Elder for the Shaitan Assassin, powering up the other Bone Collector out of reach of the Shaitan Demon, clearing it. So maybe killing the Village Elder is the best target here. Just Desert to the side, kill the Village Elder, and pass. It looks so nice if you had just one extra land, because you could step the Village Elder over and step the Bone Collectors up into getting extra, more beneficial positions, but doesn't even go for the sacrifice. I wonder if that was a misclick. Maybe not. Maybe because he wants the power-ups. It also does keep a creature over there as well. If you were to sacrifice the Village Elder, then Lizard could put a
desert directly in front of the orb and actually step a haste creature over onto the Explore prairie on the right of Lu's orb, and then that's away from your creatures, maybe a more defendable position, but very interesting that he didn't go for the sacrifice there.
I think he just wants to funnel Lizard down the middle. I mean, if he did go for the sacrifice, sure, the demon's going to be more durable, but on the other hand, if he does it this way, the Elder, like I was saying, is just annoying. It's just blocking hasters from pushing damage and, moving around the orb. And this is going to help Lu funnel all the lands down the center. So I'm very curious to see what Lizard does next. He really just needs a Soul Drain and just Soul Drain the Assassin, but decides to take the clear on the Bone Collector, just get that value nice and early, but can't. See, the sad thing is he can't really summon a follower somewhere good and then Demon Wrangler. He'd have to summon a follower, move it back, and then Demon Wrangler it, which is a little awkward.
And that's really awkward. Of course, the Demon Wing does line up really nicely into the Bone Collector. Maybe the Wrangler and Demon Wing together can take it out, but because of the way you would have to maneuver, the Demon Wrangler is within range of the Village Elder, and that just looks even worse. So, yeah, it doesn't go for anything in the end, and this is a possibility now where Lu can start that snowball like we've been talking about.
And Bone Collector is going to be right ahead of that snowball fight. It's going to be generating so much power here. Look at that, 2 power-ups and 5/7 that costs barely any Faeria, blocks this desert, and now the funnel begins. Now, don't get me wrong, we have Lizard as an opportunity here to just develop a follower and then to move onto a land and to take the well spot. But I actually think Lu should not even bother funneling here and just take the well spot now, and then if Lizard wants to develop another land, sure, why not? But it's not going to get, these hasters are not going to get any additional Faeria unless Lu is fine with a follower moving on there, taking the aggressive land into a Demon Wrangler. That's quite likely to happen with Yellow Rush these days.
Yeah, one of the awkward things is you can't go for something like a double prairie play to completely block off that side, because you need to continue to develop your lands. You need to get to your Soul Eater position so that you don't eventually draw dead cards. Really nicely finding the Fanatic there to get that extra movement and completely block off the deserts from Lizard. And now Lu's able to continue to get those forests down. He's able to, have this really strong defensive position. A big thing is he doesn't have anything aggressive yet. So this Yellow Rush has all the time in the world to just wait for something like a Soul Drain, kill that Demon Wing, and then start the aggression all over again.
That's pretty much what it's coming down to. I mean, Lizard could have done with her Soul Drain a long time ago, just take care of that Shaitan Assassin beforehand, but look at this now. Complete control of how the aggression is going out, and this big Bone Collector is just going to sit there on that land and just stop any aggression coming from Lizard.
Yeah, and now Soul Drain will not be enough because that Bone Collector is the one in the way.
I actually think you surrender at this point. I don't want to put a bummer on this match, but I just don't know how Lizard wins, because he hasn't hit the orb. If he had hit the orb a couple of times beforehand, then sure, a Zealous Crusader might be enough to bring you back. Now, I don't know if Yellow Rush can fit Last Nightmare in the build anymore. There's so many cards you want to add, Sagittarius or the Wastes. We did see a Choke in Sand, which is usually favored over the Last Nightmare. So how does it win? Like, how does Yellow Rush win from this point?
Yeah, and I don't think it's like you're even, delaying the game, playing it out to actually get information from your opponent. The green-yellow sack is fairly standard what you run in it. Of course, there's sometimes a debate of running the Village Elder versus something like Bloom Sprite, running the movement like we saw the Fanatic come out from Lu. Maybe that movement is something that you want to get information on, but you've already seen it at this point. So it's not like you're, letting your opponent basically dig through the deck so that you can get information on their cards. You're basically just playing it out for maybe a one of Doomsday like you were talking about in the earlier series.
Yeah, Doomsday could be a way to bring it back, but how much does it really bring it back? That's my question, because Sure, you doomsday this board. Lu loses a lot of creatures, but Lu goes into the next turn with Faeria advantage. And Skyax die, which means more Skyax are going to show up straight after.
Yeah, and even in that situation, if it's not Skyax, it's probably a Soul Eater, which could be enough to just OTK, or 2-turn technically, because you need to wait a turn for it to attack. But yeah, I don't even think Doomsday is enough at this position.
And I think Lu probably knows it's a Doomsday. He's probably thinking, well, actually, now from this position, Lu could just keep what board he has and just not play anything. And just save Faeria for that inevitable Doomsday. And you can see Lizard is now thinking maybe, oh, actually, I can't play to Doomsday anymore because it doesn't do enough. And now that's why we're seeing creatures going in.
And we do see the Demon Wrangler as well get that sacrifice, trying to get as much pressure on the board as possible.
And this Bone Collector is having a massive banquet of creatures. Just nom nom. It's a 12-14 straight here. Sacrifice all my dudes, but buff up your Bone Collector into the scoop. So well done to Lu there. Very, very well played. Just showing that his wealth of experience playing against Yellow Rush, but also playing Yellow Rush as well.
Yeah, and that was really nicely done in the land development as well, to utilize that funnel defense, but also really well done in the almost passiveness of letting the Shaitan Demon survive on that one early turn to ensure that his Bone Collectors could really get snowballing the right way. While one of them died, the other one was, like unstoppable through the middle turns of that game. So really nicely played by Lu to even allow that little bit of aggression and just really solidify his defensive position going forward.
Oh man, Lizard has to play another deck now. I don't think he anticipated this. And it's going to be Burn by the looks of it. Red, yellow, Burn. We saw the Sky Anemone in the opening hand, which is such a brilliant card. I'm a big fan of Sky Anemone, and I hope it does well in this matchup. I'm not sure how well it does against Green Yellow Sacrifice, but it could hold off some Soul Eaters for a turn while he chips away with this burn damage.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it is just a mono red burn, or if we do see more into the yellow because of that. The Sky Anemone there could just be a one of Desert. You play it as a surprise from your opponent, but it could be something that it's more of like a red-yellow control almost coming out from Lizard. But seeing these early red cards, I would definitely expect that it is more of at least a burn style.
Yeah, just seeing a different land development strategy from Lu here, going for a more mid-rangey style, going straight to the well here, knowing that he's going to be the aggressor in this matchup, especially against Burn.
And Lizard with a really nice setup here, even if the Rebel Slinger is able to be dealt with on the right side, Grimguard's going to be very difficult for this deck to deal with on the left, and that Faeria income could be very huge for Lizard throughout the mid-game here. I'm
curious of what Lizard's win condition is. Is it going to be Hellfire? Is it going to be Volcanic Colossus? I mean, Volcanic Colossus is a weird one. It's quite slow, but Burn is quite a slow deck anyway, so they do play off each other in deck style at least. And it's just going to be a pass here. No Fanatics, doesn't want to play into any more removal. And this is actually an opportunity here for Lizard to go. Oh, he does have the deserts as well, so Scourge Flame is probably going to be the win condition over, say, a Colossus or a Hellfire.
Yeah, I found in some experimentation with the Colossus that it never felt like it was the winning condition of the game. It felt like games that I won with it could have been another card. And I think it's interesting in the type of decks like this, but I just don't think that it's quite strong enough. And it's awkward to say because it does look almost one of the strongest that it's been in recent history. But yeah, I would definitely expect now seeing the deserts playing into something like you were saying with the Scourge Flames.
We're going to have a Flash Salmon sandwich here for the Bone Collector. I think Flash Salmons are the Bone Collector's favourite meal. Orders it every time, never changes. Such a good card in combination. Making it used. Oh wait, that's weird. Is this just
gonna be...
BM?
It is.
Just a bit of cheeky BM there, but yeah, the Flash Salmon. No, it's one of the strongest cards from Oversky. It's great in Yellow Rush. It's great as a removal tool. It's like a bit like a Falcon Dive in a way. It cycles, but with Bone Collector, it's a campfire that draws you a card. That's really, really good.
Yeah, of course, Lou, one of those players who we almost always expect to see those emotes come out from, going for it very early in this game here. Lizard now picking up Cypher could be very good in this type of situation. Now, it doesn't gain a lot of stats because it'll only gain the 1-3, the original stats of the Bone Collector here, but it at least is a big body that helps you deal with this early aggression from Lou.
It's a way to make sure that the board doesn't get out of hand with this Bone Collector. It's just putting a creature down to check anything that gets developed within range of it. It's almost like saying, well, if you don't deal with Cypher, it's going to eat something. I know your Bone Collector's already eaten stuff, but Cypher can also grow as well. And yeah, this Flash Salmon actually works out quite nicely because it allows the Bone Collector to grow even further outside of range. Well, only not that far out of range, to be honest. Only by 1. And there's a Ground Shaker in hand, so maybe the Cypher will get some value after all.
Yeah, really nicely done by Lou to spot a way where he actually could get the Bone Collector out of range, at least of being eaten by Cypher. It's going to at least trade if we see something like that Ground Shaker come down from Lizard's hand. It also blocks the collection from Lizard on this top right corner. But did have to take the extra damage from the Grimguard. That means he's now down to 10. And we're starting to see that life total tick away, that possible end game start getting closer and closer for Lizard.
I know Lou now knows the inevitable is upon him. You know, burn creates inevitability. You will eventually just die to their cards like Rebel Slinger, like Flame Burst and Grimguards. They'll chip away at you and you'll lose the game in sometimes a very passive fashion. So, in this situation, Lou understands he needs to be the aggressor here. And taking that aggressive forest is very smart, because now he's no longer playing passively, he's playing proactively.
And he's going to have Soul Eater a possibility next turn. It's at a 6-6. Looks like it'll probably become at least a 7-7. I would expect at least one of these creatures to die on this turn. That actually could be a spot where Red really struggles to catch up to that bigger creature. And just in terms of trying to end the game before Burn ends it against you, that could be what we see Lou go for here.
And now that the Bone Collector has been answered, the bigger threat on board, which represented the most damage, is being dealt with. And the Skyaxe, you know, they're not going to win the game anytime soon. And that Grimguard is protecting one of the positions. Only one Skyaxe could push damage. And of course, if the Grimguard does get 1 or 2 hits on the Skyaxe, that's going to be damage going straight to Lou's Orb, and that inevitability is going to catch up with him.
Yeah, we're looking at 9 life for Lou right now. Cypher's Wrath in hand has really good targets on the board. That's you down to 7. Grimguard puts you down to 5. Looking at something like just a Flame Burst or 2 to come out on the next couple turns, and Lizard could be able to win the game really without ever pushing past half of the board. That mountain on the right side is the most pushed up the board that Lizard has been all game.
And the only reason he developed it is because he just wanted to play Cypher somewhere. I mean, if Cypher wasn't in hand, we probably wouldn't have even seen that mountain. This is what Burn does. It just sticks around its orb, collects off its own wells, and kills you from afar.
I would definitely expect we see the Soul Eater come out from Lou here. Now, it's a possibility he goes for something like a hit and then Fanatic to move away and play something like the Demon Wrangler. But I really would not expect the Soul Eater to not be played, and we do see it come down here.
I feel like playing on the Wells is nice. You're going to get that double collection off the Fanatic, but a little transparent. And the unfortunate thing is the Grimguard does get to move up, hit, deal 2 damage. Does power up the Soul Eater, but Lizard is at a healthy, 17 life. Cypher's Wrath now comes down, clears the other Yak, which would have been perfect for finishing off the Grimguard, allowing this Sully to push some damage, but now the Grimguard needs to be hit again. That's going to put Lou in Flame Burst range, and there's not really any way that Sack can deal with this because they don't run stuff like Soul Train.
Yeah, and this is possibly Lou just trying to set up a way where he can get the Soul Eater, big enough, and then use the Fanatic and that extra movement to move around the Grimguard, or move around just any of Lizard's creatures and get one hit that ends the game. But I just don't see not dying before that happens.
And now we have a situation where Lizard can just keep drawing cards, just try and find those Flame Bursts to finish off the game, because he knows that this Grimguard is going to have to be dealt with in combat. The green-yellow sacrifices don't run Soul Drain, usually, unless Lou surprises us with a cheeky one. And, he could run Nightmare, maybe he runs Token Sands, but to me, the Shaitan Assassin represents that hard removal. I think you either run one or the other. You don't generally go down for both of them because the slots are usually quite tight, especially the inclusion of Flash Salmon.
Yeah, and I think from what we saw in the game before, I think it's more creature-based. You're looking at Flash Salmons for 1 damage removal. You're looking at Wind Soldiers for your a little bit bigger, but that 3 damage removal. Each of those are going to take that extra damage from attacking the Grimguard, so it's very difficult in this spot to not take more and more damage. And I mean, now we're looking at that Rebel Slinger in hand, 1 off of lethal for Lizard.
And there is a Scourge Flame. Not enough land right now to finish off, but the Scourge Flame only needs to hit a creature. Goes for the draw instead. Now that there's... I guess now he could just go for the Slinger, but I don't think there's any point. Because I don't think you die to the Soul Eater anyway. I think you just wait and just run your Scourge Flame into something next turn and win the game.
Yeah, I think I like saving the Faeria as well, just because that means next turn you can go for something like Scourge Flame, maybe Fanatic if you need it, to get the extra movement, the extra reach to get at your opponent's orb. But really, no matter where you play it, Scourge Flame attacking even into a creature is lethal next turn, so no reason to overreact by playing creatures this turn in a way that possibly could give Lou a way back into the game. And I don't see anything now that Lou's picked up that can give him the extra edge. Demon Wrangler can sacrifice a couple things, but it's not going to quite be enough.
Yeah, it gets to push 9 damage or clear the Ground Shaker, but probably wants to hit the orb here and try and win the game before Flame Burst comes off the top. But as you know, Scourge Flame ready to set up the lethal. Goes for a sacrifice just to extend the power of the Scourge Flame Spectre, just making sure that he can set up a 2-turn lethal. But it's not going to be enough. As we know, Scourge Flame in hand. And Lizard's going to tie things up 1-1.
Yeah, and taking the match that we generally expect to see, something like... goes for the Flame Burst, the top deck. A little bit of BM there of, maybe I didn't have a way to win the game except for drawing that Flame Burst at specifically that time, trying to tilt your opponent, but don't think it's going to work against Lou.
Psychological warfare right there. And that is actually something that could upset other players, your opponents. Not that you intend to upset them, but you intend to gain that psychological edge. Ripping Flame Burst off the top for lethal. Oh, I didn't actually have anything. Here's a Flame Burst. Dropping a well played and then throwing a Flame Burst like you would just top decked lethal. But to be fair, Lou's experienced enough to know that matchup was pretty bleak for him. There was not a lot of ways. He did the best he could with what he had. And to be fair, if he had another turn, he probably would have won. But Burn was just that one step ahead.
Yeah, and it's interesting in that type of a matchup, kind of way back in the early monthly cups. I think whenever we saw Burn, it was the Blood Singers that were actually able to do work against more like sacrifice style decks. Because they want to kill off their own creatures, and you use that to your advantage to deal that ping damage from afar. But that type of situation, it was just Grimguards really carrying Lizard throughout the early game.
And speaking of Grimguards and combat damage, Shedding Brute in Lou's opening hand, which does indicate either maybe a mono-red combat deck or potentially a red-yellow combat burn deck. So burn versus burn. But I think one thing to take away from Lou's hand here is Gift of Steel with Brute. That's going to be a very durable Brute, and it's going to be very hard to kill.
Yeah, very difficult for red to keep up with red unless you have a Gift of Steel of your own. And I don't believe we saw any from Lizard in that previous game. We do now see the Kaleem's Training in Lu's hand, so red, yellow, burn, kind of the standard, what we expect to see whenever we see a burn deck.
And I'm not surprised that we didn't see a Gift of Steel from Lizard, because his intention isn't to overwhelm you with powerful creatures, it's to chip away at you with the combat ability. So if you get rid of the Gift of Steels, you make a way for removal, which is much more valued in this kind of very defensive burn control deck. And yeah, I think that he probably doesn't even run the Gift of Steel. Could prove me wrong, but Shedding Brute coming down. Vulnerable to double Flame Burst. This might just be the opportunity to get rid of it, but Flame Burst does represent lethal damage towards the end of the game.
Yeah, pretty big. I was actually just going to point it out in terms of Lu using Flame Burst onto the Rebel Slinger there. Obviously, you generally want that to be a Cypher's Wrath instead, because you pick up the burn damage and you keep that Flame Burst for later on. It's basically 5 damage potential burn that you've now missed out on because you had to use Flame Burst on a creature rather than a Cypher's Wrath, which would have lined up really nicely.
I'm preemptively buffing here just to make sure nothing comes down to cause any trouble. Now, Sky an enemy, while it's a great way to lock creatures in place and create defensive, against these Shedding Brutes, against these Grim Guards, they still get a good amount of value because the combat trigger will go off on structures and deal that 2 damage.
Yeah, an enemy does not work in this type of a matchup. Generally, it is something that you want to have to delay your opponent from attacking in the right spots, so then you can set up your attacks in the right spots. But like you said, that burn damage will persist through the taunt and will still start to burn you down that little bit. So, I mean, I probably will not see it played. I would not expect to see it unless it's onto something else. Maybe like a Cypher or a Ground Shaker in the right spot at the right time.
If you want to be super safe, you could go Sky an enemy in front of your orb to play around Kaleem's Training Fanatic. But I don't expect Lu to run Fanatic, say, over Flashwind, because Scourge Flame has just been picked up, which tells us that he needs to find free deserts anyway, and Flashwind is much cheaper and you can combo it easier with burn damage.
I almost actually wonder, as much as we were talking about the enemy, still having that burn damage push through, I actually wonder if this is a situation where you taunt the Grim Guard for now, the flying Grim Guard, and set up that Bomb Slinger, and then use the Bomb Slinger and then its attack next turn along with the Ground Shaker in hand to hopefully clear off the Brute here.
Oh, going for double Flame Burst. I actually prefer your line there. It's a little risky. I mean, you're opening yourself up to Cypher's Wrath and other pieces of removal, but to be fair, I think it's such an efficient way to answer that threat, and you can save your Flame Bursts for later, which could either give you a win condition or take out something that you can't handle in alternative ways.
Yeah, the Flame Bursts, I put so much value in late game, saving your Flame Burst rather than using them as removal early. In this type of situation, we're going to see the 3rd Flame Burst now used from Lizard. That means he's going to have to win entirely through creatures instead of that extra reach that you have later on in the game. Of course, it is very possible to have happened that way, but it's just much more likely that you can pull out a win if you're able to have 9 damage. That's half of your opponent's orb total from hand.
Oh man. And we see the move here, anticipating the Scourge Flame Spectre on the next turn. Now, one thing that Lizard could do with Sky an enemy now is play it on the furthest desert, or the closest desert to his orb, to stop the Scourge Flame coming down and collecting. But the problem is, with a combat creature that deals damage, it's going to get value anyway. And in any other creature that wasn't a combat burn creature, Sky an enemy would be fantastic in that position. But unfortunately, Scourge Flame would get value.
I almost actually don't like seeing the Scourge Flame here. I think I would have preferred to see Lu wait a turn and Scourge Flame and Gift of Steel together next turn, rather than this type of situation where it possibly could get removed depending on what Lizard has. Maybe you feel a little safer just because you've seen all of those Flame Bursts used, but I'm just not sure of playing it here instead of waiting a turn for that Gift of Steel when you're guaranteeing that it can come down.
Oh, and this is where an enemy is going to get some use. You know, the +1 is going to allow Ground Shaker to be able to clear it off with the gift ability. Flashwind picked up, but an enemy is still going to protect the life total of our opponent here. Oh, Gift of
really
Steel.
nicely finding the Flash Wind. Gift of Steel is going to allow that full reach across to the far side of the board. And Lou going for the clear, trying to starve out his opponent as much as possible.
And now we could get a double hit on the enemy with the Grimguard. Oh, but the Cypher's Wrath ripped off the top there. Going to answer that Scourge Flame Spectre. What's going to be the follow-up? I think you just move the Bomb Slinger in front of the enemy so the Grimguard doesn't get multi-hits on it.
I think you lose out either way.
Because then the Ground
I guess
Shaker...
you do take an extra hit, yeah.
The Ground Shaker will finish off the Grimguard next turn. Because now, like, how do you kill the Grimguard? Even if you Ground Shaker a Cypher next to it, it still gets to take another hit on that enemy.
Yeah, and the Bomb Slinger, I mean, even trading the Bomb Slinger on that last turn so that you played around any potential clears would have been really nice to set up for the Ground Shaker to clear. Now Cypher coming down could be really good for Lizard to start snowballing here, but you know, now we're seeing those Cypher's Wrath, we're seeing the potential of that burn rather than the Flame Burst that we were seeing earlier. And Lou still has Flame Burst to go, so it'll be interesting to see how it continues to play out here.
Oh man, and even pushing that damage into Cypher's life reach, making sure Cypher will die in the process. And that represents 8 damage alone with the Grimguard if it goes to the orb next turn. Now Cypher can shimmy across. Double Rebel Slinger here is going to push Lou down to 10 life, but the Grimguard is still going to pick up value. And I think Lou is just very close to finishing off this game because, you know, he's ahead in the race really. He's only by 1, but 1 can be...
I don't believe that is lethal.
Oh, that is
Cypher's
lethal.
Wrath
Yes,
will take that down, and Grimguard finishes the game.
And there we have it. Lethal picked up with the Cypher's Wrath. Fantastic performance there. Burn versus Burn. Who would have thought? We haven't had Burn versus Burn in a very long time.
Yeah, and that matchup actually was very much determined by those Gift of Steels. As much as we were talking about, you know, them in the early game and Lizard potentially not having them in his deck, Lou was just able to get his creatures to such a big position that the Brute was required a lot of investment from Lizard to deal with, very difficult in that situation. And then, of course, the Grimguard couldn't be answered at the end.
Yeah, and I think the Gift of Steel just pushed Lou out of reach of the removal of the kind of slower burn, the burn that didn't use the Gift of Steel. And now, a Soul Pack deck against Burn, that's not something you want to see, but it's going to be kept here. And Lizard maybe playing some form of Event Flyers, or maybe just playing a yellow tempo build that uses Iona Smile.
Yeah, could be Flyers. Generally, you would see Iona Smile in something like green-yellow Sack, but I'm not sure if you run Manta Riders in it. Now, we did see Yellow Rush earlier from Lizard, so maybe it is green-yellow, and he's running Manta Rider as more of a mid-rangey card in there, but I would expect probably Flyers as the list that he's running here.
Yeah, I mean, there's no Soul Drains, I would imagine. Maybe no Wind Soldiers. Or maybe he didn't run Soul Drain in his Yellow Rush list, allowing Flyers to have access to it. Because, you know, Flyers generally don't use Wind Soldier either because the Wind Soldiers can't fly, and it means you have to develop additional lands for them, whereas Soul Drain is global, and you don't need that additional lands to allow them to move towards their target. I'm really curious, like, Lizard... It's got a very spicy deck here, and it looks like Flyers to me so far, especially with that champion pickup.
Yeah, definitely would expect that it's Flyers. You know, something that champion would be something that we way back would have said, nope, yellow control. We know that that's what it's going to be, but just generally not what's played currently. And a Sunsilk Fairy picked up now definitely means that it's yellow Flyers.
Sunsilk Fairy, so maybe a more aggressive variation, or maybe just using the Sunsilk Fairies as kind of weaker Gabrian Commanders. Gabrian Commanders picked up in popularity recently. 4-2, very nice stat line for just trading with enemy creatures. Sunsilk Fairy can reach the same stat line, but does demand that event draw, so potentially a lot of events in this deck as well, just to make those Sunsilk Fairies more consistent.
Yeah, kind of unfortunate for Lizard, though, that he doesn't have an early creature to play. You generally want something down as quick as possible. We'll get the Manta Riders next turn, which could be really nice against the early creatures coming out from Lu, but we also have the kind of mind game from Lu of preemptive Gift of Steel versus saving Gift of Steel. Do you think your opponent has Last Nightmare, or do they have something else to clear instead?
Choking Sands is a fantastic answer to both these targets, but we saw Choking Sands out of the Yellow Rush, so maybe not running it. I don't think you run more than maybe 1 or 2 Choking Sands in Yellow Rush anyway, so there would be a spare slot left over for this Yellow Flyers build. But Manta Rider probably going to come down this turn, maybe play Sunsilk Fairy on the Orb spot, so it can double collect it can move and collect on the other side. But no, we're going to go for double Manta Rider, so that's some durability right there.
Yeah, really strong to get both the Manta Riders down. Of course, something like Firestorm could pick up a lot of value here, but we know that that's probably not going to be a possibility in a red-yellow burn. There's just not room for it. So these Manta Riders are going to possibly be very difficult for Lu to deal with. Just really depends on what the next pickup for Lizard is, if he's able to find a Last Nightmare for the Gift of Steel coming down onto one of these creatures.
And flying creatures as well, that Kaleem's training makes them very deadly. I feel like Lizard's in a good position though. Like, the Manta Rider not only represents a very high attack creature that can challenge these without Gift of Steel, but also they're durable, so when they die, they summon another creature. So it's very easy for Lizard to retain board control, or at least some board presence, once they get cleared. And, Lu's going to have to invest additional resources into them. Maybe he has to Flame Burst them to knock them down before he hits the Manta, or maybe he has to line up Cypher's Wrath for them, but they do generally cost a lot of cards from your opponent.
I think this is probably a matchup where Lu can play a lot slower, especially than he did in the previous game. You're looking at a matchup where Yellow, most of the time wants to control through creatures fighting, but they want to do so in ways where they can out-collect you on board. And that, creature fighting is going to play into the burn style. We already saw Soul Pact, our potentially follow-up Soul Pact's going to be able to be played, or do you think you're going to burn yourself down too much? And then you're just playing towards Flame Burst, Scourge Flame as your end game win condition. So I think it's something where Lu could play a lot slower than you generally would in Red Yellow Burn.
Yeah, he has more time now. He doesn't have another opponent burning him down at the same time, and you can take his time, plan his attacks. Kaleem's training, very tricky cards, that especially in combination with a card like Cypher, allowing it to devour things from a distance. And yeah, there's no rush. But then again, yellow Flyers, a lot of mobility, especially with that Flash Wind, especially with that Windborn Champion. And one thing Yellow Flyers is very good at is just accelerating a lot of damage very quickly with the mobility, and then having these bulky champions or these durable Manta Riders, making it very difficult for you to answer the threat that's at your orb.
Yeah, that's something that Yellow Flyers can very easily do, is hit and then run away. This situation, the Flash Wind was used to actually get aggressive, which means it is going to play into that creature combat a little bit more, probably than Lizard would like at this stage. But, eventually we're going to see potentially next turn something like a hit and then Windborn Champion to move that creature away and continue to out-collect Lu on the board.
Oh, Cypher's Wrath though, fantastic pickup here for Lu, being able to deal with that Manta as well instead of using his creature's life, so that's an option here. The Kaleem's training also allows just one of these creatures to trade off cleanly without demanding additional resources. Like the Gift of Steel straight away, can maybe save it, or retain the life of his Grimguard or his Brigand. So I like the clear.
There's a really good full clear here. You can Kaleem's training both the Brigand, across hit that Manta Rider. Kaleem's training your Cypher and bring it back and kill the other Manta Rider. That then sets up Cypher's Wrath onto the Manta that spawns on the right well, and Grimguard clears the one right in front.
Oh, very nice. Okay, so yeah, let's see if he's going to go for it. Nice full clear. Manta Riders are really annoying to deal with. And to be fair, Lou just had a perfect answer to them. And now this flying Cypher, who's an 11-4, is a big threat because one movement trick, and it could be very, very dangerous for Lizard going forward.
Yeah, the Sunsilk Fairies, if it's double Sunsilk and then draw, if they trigger, will be very good tempo back for Lizard, but if they don't, you're in a really awkward position where you don't get your Windborn Champion this turn. Depends on what you draw, if the creature is going to be durable enough and able to be played in a position where it can trade in the right way. But yeah, this looks really good for Lou, especially if he's able to pick up either like a Scourge Flame or a Flash Wind off the top and push a lot of damage on this next turn.
I think a big issue that Lizard has right now is there's not really a safe place for his champion to be played. Because he could play it on the left side of his orb, and that's out of reach of both these flyers. But one Flash Wind, and this Brigand will just trade with it cleanly, and Lou will gain Faeria from that, and he'll lose one of his most powerful cards in his deck. So I actually think I like your suggestion of going for double Sunsilk and then going for the draw. And that might just give enough board presence to allow them to trade into the two threats that are on board right now, and maybe gain a bit of a board control back and get some momentum back for the next turn.
And the well played coming up from Lizard.
Oh,
I think that's what he's going to go for.
Oh, there's a trigger, and it's a Flash Wind.
They do trigger, so that's actually huge in terms of getting that potential value out of them, getting one at least to trade with Cypher. Although now with the Scourge Flame picked up, this is really nice for Lou to clear and have Cypher survive.
Although it's not going to have enough Faeria for it. It's too Faeria.
You can trade the.
Oh,
you can trade
the thing,
your
yes.
Brigand.
Oh yes, of course. Yeah, this actually works out so well.
Yeah, trading the Brigand into the Sunsilk Fairy and then Scourge Flame comes down. It also collects, which is everything that you could want out of your haste creature, and then Cypher steps right up into a position where he can possibly win the game next turn.
It's going to be very hard for Yellow Flyers to come back with this, especially when one of the cards is soul packed. Yeah, and that is going to be it, and Lou takes the series 3-1 and is going to advance into the next part of the tournament, making his way into the semi-finals. So
yeah,
well
so Lou
played.
will be guaranteed another top 4 position. Lizard, unfortunate in that spot to lose out to somebody who's really just on a rampage throughout the monthly cups in recent history.
And a very interesting kind of build selection for both players, really. Taking the Yellow Flyers with the Yellow Rush. Lou opting for green-yellow Sacrifice, but then red-yellow Burn. So two yellows. We saw 2 greens from Alvar. We also saw 2 greens from Mayhem as well. We had green-yellow Sacrifice, and we had green-red Crackthorn. So just going to show, even though the Pantheon format only lets you have 3 of any card and only 1 of any legend, there are enough cards in the pool now where you can take multiple dual colors. You can use green in 2 decks instead of having it restricted to 1. So just going to show that the more cards we get for Faeria, the more expansive the Pantheon format will become.
Yeah, and it's not even just a case of, where we expect to see these 3 decks from pretty much everybody, like we had in the past few monthly cups with the green-blue ramp, the red combat, and then the yellow tempo that we were seeing so much of. Now we're seeing players really expand their full lineups. Of course, the green-blue ramp was still seen. Green-yellow sack still very much played and doing well in the monthly cups, but now we're starting to see players branch out into possibly personal preferences in their lineups as much as decks they think are strong.
And yeah, we haven't had really a settled meta game yet. Things are still being figured out, especially with the vast amount of balance changes we had to the cards, not only nerfs but buffs as well. And the 3 decks that have really, I think, picked up in popularity, at least in this tournament, Green-Yellow Sacrifice, we've seen a lot of burn variants, like some kind of burn variation, and then we have the Yellow Rush. So red, yellow, and red-yellow and green-yellow seem to be the favorites at the moment.
Yeah, yellow really seeming to shine in situations where you can just use it for that extra movement of getting, opening up the potential of running something like a red-yellow burn in your lineup.
So yeah, we're going to go to a break now. We'll have a semi-finals coming up for you next, guys. We're not sure which one just yet. I do believe we're still waiting on a few players to finish their games. If it does take a little while, I will keep you up to date of how those matches are progressing. If you'd like to watch more games, there are other channels streaming right now. Let me just get a... let me just find exactly all the channel names for you. They're in the Discord. If you go to the news post that was made for Faeria Friday, it does tell you all the streams there. So we have this stream here, Faeria TV, but we also have Gravekeeper, which is GRAVEKPER. Be sure to drop these channels a follow as well if you'd like to, just bounce between them as well during the day. Japan stream as well. We have SKC DGN Nico, DG Nico. So if you just go to the Faeria game on Twitch, you'll be able to see all of these. And we have Crash Diet as well, Crash Diet _05. So lots of other Faeria streams going on, showing other matches. So while we're on the break, be sure to check them out and give them some love. So yeah, we'll be back very soon, guys. Stay tuned, and we'll have a semi-finals very soon.